Greetings fellow Mist Wanderers, my name is Steve Morgan and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. This video is going to be a little bit different to the usual Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft content I put out, but not entirely, because I'm still going to be talking about Strahd, and I'm still going to be talking about Ravenloft, but I'm going to be talking about an upcoming novel that's coming out in May 2025 called Heir of Strahd by Delilah S. Dawson. The reason I wanted to do this video is because I'd seen some comments online on places like the Curse of Strahd subreddit and on the Cos DM's Facebook group, where a lot of people kind of tearing apart the book and saying, oh, the cover. Yeah, they always say don't judge a book by its cover, but a lot of people were sort of criticising the cover, saying the characters look too happy and it looked too sort of 5th edition, you know, happy party, not true horror. Even Strahd looks happy. And things like that. Maybe I'm more of an optimist than some of my other Ravenloft fans, but I don't know. I've got a good feeling about this. I think it'll be better than people expect, or at least I hope so. I didn't actually, other than leaving a couple of tiny comments on some of the chatter about it online, I didn't leave like a dedicated comment anywhere with my thoughts, so I thought I'd do it in this video and give a few predictions about what I think might happen in the novel. And I think it'd be funny then when I inevitably do a video in May doing a review about it and I look back at this and say, I got this prediction horribly wrong and this prediction horribly wrong, but we'll see how it goes. So before we continue, I'd just like to give a bit of an overview about sort of how I came into D&D and Ravenloft, because I think it will help to show my position and my thoughts about this novel. So I didn't get into D&D until about 5-10 years ago, so I've only really known 5th edition. And I didn't start DMing D&D until about 5 years ago. I was a player in Curse of Strahd, then I DM'd Curse of Strahd, and now I'm DMing a continuing domain-hopping 5th edition Ravenloft campaign as a sequel to Curse of Strahd. So the characters defeated Strahd, got to level 10, and now we've continued beyond level 10. So it's the same PC still playing. Even though I came into D&D through 5th edition, I have a lot of respect and admiration for the older Ravenloft lore and often dive into the older lore to get ideas and inspiration and borrow stuff in my 5th edition game. And a lot of that includes reading all the old Ravenloft novels. Not just reading the 2 Strahd novels, which I think a lot of Curse of Strahd DMs do for inspiration on Strahd, but reading pretty much all of the other ones that are readily available. By readily available, I mean the ones that can be found easily enough on Kindle and audiobook. I've pretty much read all of them. I think it works out to about half, maybe 2/3 of all the old Ravenloft novels. But I've also read King of the Dead and Shadowborn, which aren't included in that list. And then I've read some of the newer D&D stuff as well. I was excited about the D&D movie when it came out, Honor Among Thieves, and there's 2 tie-in novels for that. And I really enjoyed The Road to Neverwinter. It was a lot better than I was expecting. There's a twist in it. Sorry for anyone who hasn't read it yet, wanted to read it. Now you know there's a twist. I know some people hate that, but there's a twist in it, and I successfully guessed the twist, and I was really proud of myself, even though it probably wasn't that mind-blowing a twist, and even though people who know their D&D probably could have guessed the twist too, I guessed the twist, and I was really chuffed with it. I was like, yes, I got the twist. And I think that kind of helped for me really liking the novel. And I'm now currently reading, the same author who did Road to Neverwinter has also done a series of novels called The Fallbacks. I think I say series of novels. The first one came out last year, is one I'm reading at the moment. The second one I think is coming out later this year. And I'm enjoying it so far. I'll be honest, it's not Ravenloft, but it's cool and I like it. So I kind of come from this kind of weird place of I'm a newer Ravenloft fan, but I like the old Ravenloft stuff, including the old Strahd novels and old Ravenloft novels, but I do like the newer D&D novels, which is probably why I'm a bit more of an optimist, because if I didn't like the new D&D novels, I would probably think, oh, maybe this isn't going to be as good as it could be, and be on the same boat as everyone else saying, oh, it doesn't look like it's going to be great. One thing I noticed is it seems more party-focused. There's a group of adventurers on the cover, 5 of them, whereas you look at the old Ravenloft novels, let's look at the ones that have Strahd in them, and it's either Strahd is the protagonist, which seems like a weird thing to say, but if you look at the 2 Strahd novels, it's him talking about the events of the story from his perspective. But then you've also got Vampire of the Mists, which is Jander Sunstar. He goes to Barovia and sees Strahd. Knight of the Black Rose with Lord Soth. He goes to Barovia and sees Strahd. And there's a solo perspective. And also what's interesting about the Lord Soth one is he's the sort of, protagonist doesn't feel like the right word, but he's the central character, but he's a villain. So as much as I enjoyed those novels, it was very much a individual viewpoint. It was Jander's viewpoint, it was Lord Soth's viewpoint, rather than this group of adventurers, which I feel like is truer to D&D. And I think that was kind of one of the criticisms. People like saying, oh, the cover just looks like somebody's written their D&D Curse of Strahd game and turned it into a book. But I feel as though if they're trying to get people to who read the book then to think, right, I want to play or DM Curse of Strahd, it's probably going to be more likely that they'll do that if they see a group of adventurers as the characters rather than just like one person like Janderson Star or Lord Starth. Like I said, nothing against those novels. I really enjoyed those novels. Just thinking about maybe the thought process that's gone behind this one. I wonder if the cover is a red herring as well. Yes, these adventurers look really cheery. They look really happy, too happy to be in Barovia. What if this is as soon as they've walked into Barovia? Hey, this new land, we're brave heroes, we're adventurers, we'll defeat this evil Lord Strahd. And you kind of wonder if it's going to be the Rick and Morty meme, where Rick's saying to Morty, quick, 20-minute adventure, in and out. And then at the end of it, they are broken people. What if the same thing is intended here? They look like a cheery band of adventurers, and by the time Strahd's done with them, they're, crying, begging for death. As serious and as horrible as that sounds, but you get what I mean. Maybe it's one of those things where that's what they're going with. They want it to look like this cheery band of adventurers who at the end of the novel are just broken people. I noticed as well there were concerns. There was a comment on one of the things I read where someone was like, oh, the author they've chosen tends to work on a lot of IPs. She writes Star Wars novels and things like that. And the person put a little comment saying size in old Ravenloft. And I understand that criticism. However, I'd also like to point out that the author of 3 Ravenloft novels, Christine Golden, all the Ravenloft novels she wrote were excellent, by the way, including Vampire of the Mists. She used to write for different IPs, including Star Wars, again, and Star Trek. And the author of King of the Dead and another novel, I've forgotten the name, Jean Deweese, I think his name is, he used to write loads of Star Trek novels. So I think it's the nature of the business. I'm dabbling in writing, as you can kind of see over there. That's my epic fantasy novel. Second one hopefully out late this year. And I've been to a few writing events and conferences and conventions. And I think it is kind of common that when you write for one IP, you kind of get offers to write on more IPs. And that doesn't mean to say that people aren't fans of the IPs they're writing for. I think for one of the D&D novels, the author thanked their D&D group. So they played D&D. They weren't just someone who never touched D&D in their life, didn't even know what D and D stood for, and then has to write a D&D novel. These are fans of D&D. I don't know, to be honest with you, if Delilah S. Dawson is a D&D fan, but maybe she is. And we should give her a bit more credit that, she's familiar with the lore more so than, she's just been given this IP to dabble with. Digressing a little bit, but I'm a huge fan of Attack on Titan. Next to Strahd, we have Mikasa. And I read the novel that an author wrote for that. And funnily enough, I was a fan of the author through her other work, and then discovered she wrote an Attack on Titan novel. And I was like, that's a weird coincidence. Like, this amazing writer has written for one of my favorite things. And she did like a Reddit AMA, and she said that she was a huge Attack on Titan fan. She wasn't just somebody who wrote Attack on Titan because she was thinking of the dollar signs. She was a huge fan of the material, and she considered it like an honor and stuff. So maybe there's a part of that as well. I'd like to leave off now with a couple of predictions about what I think will happen in this novel based on some of the stuff I've said. And I think it'll just be really funny when I do my review in May that we'll look back on this and see how much of it is correct. I think it will be grislier than expected. I think looking at the cover, looking at people's feedback on the cover, that people think it's going to be too cheery, it's not going to be proper horror, it's not going to be scary. But I wonder if people are expecting it to be this really cheery, happy Barovian adventure, and it's going to be grislier than expected. So that's my first prediction. I predict, this is a risky prediction, but I predict at least one character is going to die. Maybe a noble, heroic sacrifice. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they just get killed by Strahd and then the others, one of them, band up and make sure they defeat Strahd for good. I think that would be quite a cool thing, because you expect especially if it's this kind of happy, fluffy vibe that everyone thinks is going to happen. I imagine a lot of people are going to expect it to be that they all survive, unscathed and what have you. Speaking about surviving unscathed, I wonder if one of them leaves changed. I don't mean in the traditional sort of hero's journey style of they've changed, they've evolved, they've grown, but I mean literally like they changed. They maybe entered Barovia as a hero and now leaving Barovia broken or as a villain. Maybe they've accepted a dark gift if they're going as far as doing things like the Amber Temple. I'll be interested to see, if they include places from Curse of Strahd like the Amber Temple and Argynvost Holt and some of the stuff that's newer as a 5th edition. And my fourth and final prediction, and this is the riskiest one, what if Strahd doesn't get defeated? I'm not saying the heroes lose and or get killed, but what if something happens and they're able to escape Barovia? but Strahd doesn't lose. I think that'd be quite interesting. And that's kind of a callback to the old novels, because you have the Heir of Strahd novels told from his perspective. You have Vampire of the Mists, where he's, spoilers for some of these coming up now, where he's nearly defeated by Jan the Sunstar, but isn't. The Lord Soth one, Knight of the Black Rose, where I think Lord Soth goes off somewhere else. Strahd's like, see ya. I think it'd be a cool callback to those. And also very fitting, I think people going into the novel think, well, of course, you know, it's heroes and that classic storytelling structure of the good guys win and the bad guy loses and is defeated. But what if this, and this would be more true to horror, what if Strahd isn't fully defeated and survives? And there's almost the horror of like they escape Barovia and they feel this guilt if like we weren't able to defeat him. Or maybe they defeat him, they think they defeat him, but of course he isn't actually defeated. Something like that. So those are my predictions. That's my theory. Those are my rambling thoughts about Heir of Strahd. What do you think? Were you one of the people who, in those comments on Reddit, on Facebook, think it's going to be absolutely terrible and dreadful? Or are you more optimistic? And I'm praying now that in May, when I actually sit down and read it, does live up to my expectations, and which aren't ridiculously high. And I think I'm one of those people who is just happy that another Ravenloft and Strahd related thing is coming out. And it'll be cool to see the nods and the mentions of places in Barovia in the novel, and hopefully introduce new people into it. Even if the novel isn't great, hopefully it inspires and introduces new fans to Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. I think that would be good in and of itself, and job done to an extent, but even better if it's good or it's a great novel. Let me know what you think. I'd be interested to know your thoughts, and we'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Wanderers.